It was a typical Tuesday morning. The sky over Manhattan was clear, and the sun reflected off the skyscrapers like any other day. Children walked to school, executives clutched their hurried coffees, and the city's sounds composed New York's usual morning symphony. Nothing seemed out of place. In the offices, phones rang, printers hummed, and the world seemed to turn as it always did. It was the perfect portrait of normalcy, the city that never sleeps, awake and alive, moving to the rhythm of progress and routine. But above the urban noise, a distant sound began to cut through the air. It was almost imperceptible, just a small dot moving across the blue sky. No one could imagine what was about to happen. At 8:46 in the morning, the ordinary would be brutally interrupted. A commercial airplane crossed the horizon and struck one of the twin towers. The impact echoed like a metallic thunder, and for a few seconds, time seemed to stop. No one knew what had happened. Everyone looked up, trying to understand the impossible. What seemed like an isolated accident soon became a global tragedy. At 9:03, the second plane hit the other tower. The sound was different, deeper, more real. There was no longer any doubt. What New York was living through wasn't an accident. It was an attack. On the streets, chaos began. Men and women ran without knowing where to go. Dust, paper, screams, and sirens formed a symphony of despair. The air grew heavy, the sky turned gray, and the world's most vibrant city sank into silence and fear. Inside the buildings, workers tried to descend the stairs through the smoke. Some helped injured colleagues, others called home, not realizing those would be their last words. Outside, people stared upward in disbelief, unable to comprehend that the world they knew was vanishing. Amid the panic, heroes emerged. Firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and ordinary citizens ran toward danger. They knew the risk, but courage spoke louder. Every step taken into the towers was a silent prayer. They didn't flee, they climbed. As the city tried to understand, the sound of sirens filled the air. Military radios echoed commands. Helicopters hovered above, and the ground of New York trembled under the weight of uncertainty. But amid the chaos, there was solidarity. Hands reached out. Strangers became brothers. The towers burned, Smoke covered the sun. At the windows, desperate waves for help. The wind carried ashes, and the heat made glass shatter. It was as if the world's heart was burning before everyone's eyes, and no one could stop it. Dust covered everything: buildings, cars, people. Day turned into night, and silence took over the streets. Those who escaped wandered aimlessly, covered in ash. Empty eyes, slow steps, labored breathing. It was the portrait of a wounded city, but still alive. Firefighters searched for survivors among the debris. Every sound, every knock, could mean a sign of life. Hours turned into days, and hope persisted even when everything seemed lost. Men and women kept digging, driven only by faith and the promise to leave no one behind. Meanwhile, the world watched in silence. Televisions broadcast the images to every continent. Millions wept without understanding. The impossible had happened before everyone's eyes, in real time, and humanity would never be the same. As evening fell, the sun struggled to pierce through the smoke. On the sidewalks, candles began to appear. Photos of the missing covered the walls, faces telling stories abruptly cut short. And amid the mourning, one certainty grew stronger. The city would rise again. New York, wounded, was still breathing. Doctors, volunteers, and families joined in prayer. The silence of the streets was broken only by the distant wail of sirens. Even among the ruins, something remained unbroken: the will to move forward. That night, the entire world lit candles. People who had never been to New York felt the pain as their own. Because that day, everyone lost something: innocence, safety, the certainty of a predictable tomorrow. The entire planet was in mourning. But amid the darkness, acts of love emerged. Strangers helped one another, families sheltered outsiders, and hope, though faint, began to rise again. It was proof that even in the darkest days, humanity is still capable of light. September 11th, 2001, divided history. It was the day the sky stood still, and the world learned the price of peace. Between fear and courage, between ashes and faith, the memory remains alive, so it may never be forgotten.